The galaxy had known peace for 300 years. The Galactic Council maintained order across 17,000 star systems, and conflicts were settled through trade agreements and diplomatic channels. War was considered primitive, a relic of species that had not yet evolved past their violent origins. The great empires of the cosmos had learned long ago that conquest was expensive and cooperation was profitable. Then humanity arrived. Earth had only joined the galactic community 47 years ago. They were considered young, inexperienced, and somewhat peculiar. Their technology was adequate but not impressive. Their military was small compared to the ancient fleets of the Dominion or the Empire. They occupied a single solar system with a handful of colony ships scattered across nearby worlds. By galactic standards, they were insignificant. Commander of the Collective had counted on this insignificance when he ordered his warship to intercept the human research vessel traveling through neutral space. The ship carried valuable scientific data about an ancient artifact discovered on the edge of explored territory. They wanted that data, and they did not wish to pay for it. The attack was swift and brutal. The human vessel was disabled within minutes. Its crew of 12 was killed in the assault, their bodies left floating in the wreckage. But one human survived. Doctor, the lead researcher, had been in a shielded laboratory at the moment of the attack. When soldiers boarded the crippled ship, they found him alive among the dead. Made a decision that would change galactic history. Instead of killing the survivor, he took him hostage. The human possessed knowledge of the artifact that the scientists could not extract from the damaged computers. They would force him to share his findings, and then they would dispose of him quietly. One human life meant nothing in the grand calculation of galactic politics. The Collective sent no ransom demand. They made no announcement. They simply disappeared into their territory with their prize, confident that no one would notice or care about a single missing human on a destroyed research vessel. They were wrong. 3 days after the attack, a patrol ship encountered a human diplomatic courier near the border. The courier carried a simple message addressed to the Collective's High Council. The message contained only one line: return within 72 hours or face the consequences. High Counselor read the message and laughed. The idea that humans would threaten the Collective was absurd. The Collective controlled 47 star systems and commanded a fleet of 3,000 warships. Earth had perhaps 200 vessels capable of combat. The numbers spoke for themselves. Sent his response: the Collective does not negotiate with lesser species. Your researcher is our property now. Accept this reality, or your species will learn the price of arrogance. The human ambassador received this response without emotion. She simply nodded, thanked the diplomat for his time, and left the meeting. Within hours, every human vessel in space had departed. Every trade agreement was suspended. Every diplomatic channel went silent. The Galactic Council watched these developments with mild curiosity. Several elder species offered to mediate the dispute. They suggested that Earth accept compensation for the lost crew and move forward. They proposed a face-saving compromise that would allow both sides to claim victory. These were the normal ways that such conflicts were resolved. Earth rejected every offer. On the 4th day after the ultimatum expired, the first human warships appeared at the border. They did not attack. They did not communicate. They simply took position and waited. More ships arrived over the following hours. Then more. By the end of the day, the border stations were reporting over 50 human vessels holding position just outside their territory. High Counselor was not concerned. 50 ships against 3,000 was not a threat. It was a gesture, nothing more. The humans were trying to save face before accepting their inevitable defeat. But the ships kept coming. On the 5th day, the count reached 100. On the 6th day, 200. On the 7th day, the number passed 300 and continued climbing. Ships arrived from every human colony, every distant outpost, every corner of their small territory. Freighters were converted into missile platforms. Mining vessels were armed with improvised weapons. Passenger liners carried soldiers instead of travelers. The Galactic Council began to take notice. Ambassador Al of the Dominion requested an emergency meeting with the human delegation. He found the human ambassador calm and composed, showing no signs of the desperation he expected. "You cannot win this conflict," Al said. "Your entire fleet cannot match the collective. You are risking the extinction of your species for a single individual. This is not rational behavior." The human ambassador smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "You misunderstand us," she said. "We are not risking extinction. We are demonstrating a principle. Every human life matters, every single one. If we abandon Doctor today, then tomorrow any of us could be abandoned. That is not acceptable. That will never be acceptable." Al struggled to comprehend this logic. In society, individuals served the collective good. Sacrificing one for many was considered noble and correct. The idea of mobilizing an entire civilization for a single person was not just irrational, it was incomprehensible. "You will lose millions of lives to save one," he said. "Yes," the ambassador replied. "And every one of those millions knows that if they were the one captured, the rest would come for them. That is what holds us together. That is what makes us human." On the 8th day, the human fleet numbered 412 vessels. The High Council held an emergency session. For the first time, voices of concern were raised. The humans showed no signs of stopping their buildup. Their economy was collapsing as resources were diverted to military production. Their civilian population was volunteering for military service faster than they could be trained. Entire families were joining the fleet together. Commander was summoned before the council to explain his actions. He defended himself by pointing to the valuable data they had obtained. But the council was no longer interested in ancient artifacts. They were watching their border fill with enemy ships and wondering if they had made a terrible mistake. On the 10th day, the human fleet reached 500 vessels. They had stripped their defenses bare. There was protected by only a handful of ships. Their colonies were vulnerable. Their entire civilization was positioned at the border, waiting. The Galactic Council demanded an explanation. They sent their most senior diplomat to meet with Earth's leadership. The old ambassador had negotiated hundreds of conflicts over his long life. He had seen species rise and fall, empires collapse and reform. Nothing had prepared him for what he encountered on Earth. The human capital was quiet but determined. There were no protests, no dissent. Children were being taught in schools about Doctor. His face was displayed on every screen. His name was spoken in every conversation. He was not just a prisoner, he was a symbol of everything humanity believed. "This is madness," the ambassador said to the human prime minister. "You are destroying your civilization for one man." "No," the prime minister replied. "We are defining what our civilization means. If we cannot protect our own, we are nothing. If we abandon our people when rescue is difficult, we do not deserve to call ourselves a nation. Doctor is coming home. That is not a negotiating position. That is a fact." On the 12th day, the human fleet reached 600 vessels. They began moving their own forces to the border. War seemed inevitable. Then something unexpected happened. Appeared at the border, not to oppose the humans, but to join them. Ambassador Al had returned to his people and shared what he had learned. The council had debated for days before reaching their decision. If the humans were willing to sacrifice everything for one person, perhaps there was something worth learning from these young species. 50 warships took position alongside the human fleet. The news spread across the galaxy like fire. Other species began to question their own values. If the humans were right, if individual lives truly mattered that much, what did that say about civilizations that traded lives like commodities? On the 14th day, a squadron arrived at the border. then a dozen ships from the neutral republic, then vessels from species that had no stake in the conflict at all. They came to witness. They came to support. They came because they wanted to see what would happen when a civilization refused to accept the unacceptable. High Counselor watched his advantages disappear. The still had superior numbers, but the political situation had transformed. What had seemed like a simple act of piracy had become a galactic crisis. Other species were watching, waiting to see how the collective would respond to this challenge. On the 15th day, called an emergency meeting with his advisors. The conversation was brief and bitter. They had underestimated the humans badly. They had not understood what they were dealing with. On the 16th day, a single shuttle approached the human fleet. It carried one passenger. Doctor was thin and exhausted. His captivity had been harsh, but he was alive. When he stepped onto the deck of the human flagship, the entire fleet erupted in celebration. Ships that had traveled for weeks to reach this moment sounded their horns in triumph. Soldiers who had prepared to die cheered until their voices gave out. The human prime minister addressed the galaxy that evening. His words were simple. "We came for our own. We will always come for our own. Let this serve as a reminder to anyone who thinks a human life can be taken without consequence. We do not leave our people behind. Not one. Not ever." The Galactic Council recorded the event in their archives. They created a new diplomatic classification for humanity, a species that should never be provoked. Not because of their military strength, which remained modest. Not because of their technology, which was still developing, but because of their unity, their determination, and their absolute refusal to abandon their own. The collective paid reparations for the 12 crew members killed in the attack. Commander was stripped of his rank and exiled. The collective signed treaties guaranteeing safe passage for all human vessels through their territory. Doctor returned to his research. The artifact he had been studying was eventually decoded, revealing nothing more than an ancient star map. The data that had stolen and killed for was worthless. But the lesson the galaxy learned was priceless. Humanity had proven something that the older species had forgotten long ago. A civilization was not measured by its ships or its weapons or its territory. It was measured by how it treated its people, especially the most vulnerable. The humans had risked everything for one man, and in doing so, they had earned the respect of species that had dismissed them as primitive. In the years that followed, Earth grew stronger. Allies sought them out, treaties were signed, trade flourished, and wherever humans traveled in the galaxy, they carried with them the knowledge that they would never be abandoned. That promise, more than any weapon or technology, made them dangerous. One hostage had been held. Earth had assembled an armada to bring him back, and the galaxy would never forget.